The Sepang International Circuit is back in a modern Formula 1 game. Yes, we have the Malaysian Grand Prix DLC in a modern F1 game, but it's not thanks to Codemasters or EA. Once again, Gekai has come up with the goods. This man is an absolute wizard when it comes to F1 mods. And so as usual, if you do have the F1 2020 game on PC and you do want to check out this mod, then there will be a link down below in the description where you can go check it out and download it for yourself. And this is proving also that F1 2020 appears to be such a fantastic moddable platform when it comes to these extra bits of content you can add to this game. We've had, you know, the 2007 mod, we've had a 2003 full season mod, and now we have an additional track mod on this game. And yet, on the current F1 22 game, the only track DLC that we've gotten are for tracks that were just removed literally from last year's game and added at a later point in the game cycles. But that's all I'll say on that matter. Anyways, let's get into the meat of this video as we go to Fire Red Light to the Malaysian Grand Prix once again back in Formula 1. We're driving as Sebastian Vettel in his 2020 Ferrari, so we're not expecting to go from last to first place. Of course, this Ferrari was a bit of a dog of a car, especially in a straight line, but we'll try our best. But immediately getting met with the very tricky challenge of turns 1 and 2 around Sepang, getting squeezed out by the Williams of Russell into turn 1, having to ride the curb all the way through, and then having a battle with Kevin Magnussen looking to try and keep this down the inside. I had a little look and thought about getting Grosjean, but the gap just wasn't ever going to be there. But it's good to be back around Sepang, you know. This track still holds up pretty well, and going through the really high-speed corners, you know, it's a bit of a shame that it's not on the F1 grid at the moment, because I'm sure with this current crop of cars that we even have now going to 2023, the speeds, the onboards would be awesome. And you know, now with cars that, you know, can somewhat follow a lot better than maybe in previous years in prime Malaysian Grand Prix territory when it was a staple in the F1 calendar, the circuit might be, you know, it might open up to even more overtakes in action because of those cars that can follow better through these high-speed sections. And, you know, coming to one of the most challenging, or was one of the most challenging corners in Formula 1 when it was on the calendar all the time. That blind right-hander over the crest, up the hill, off camber at the same time. Very tricky in the dry, even more so in the wet, of course, that place where Sergio Perez went wide at that wet and wild Malaysian Grand Prix, where he still managed to get a podium, and Fernando Alonso somehow won in that 2012 Ferrari. But at the moment, we're having our own struggles in this 2020 Ferrari. In a straight line, you can see the AlphaTauri outdoing me. So, yeah, this Ferrari really was very draggy indeed. But then through these turns, we can really do some work here, dancing the car round the outside of Pierre Gasly, and then getting to the inside for the next left-hander. That's why those two corners were always so actually quite good, because you really had to always pre-plan and kind of plan out your whole overtake based off the both corners, because if you're on the inside for turn 1, the driver on the outside could actually just hold you to the inside line, get the elbow out for the second turn, and would actually have the better racing line then. So you always had to kind of pre-plan for both corners, and it always gave a few, you know, interesting battles, let's say, through those turns. And obviously some heartbreak for some drivers, mainly Lewis Hamilton when his engine blew up at that very corner. But now just at the end of Sector 2 into Sector 3, able to roll the car round the outside of Lando Norris in the McLaren. Very unorthodox place to actually make a move on the outside, but he did lock up and compromise his line. And even though that was quite a slow corner, because the elevation of the circuit goes straight up, if you lock up like that, you can lose so much momentum, and we just held it, kept it rolling through around the outside to make a pretty slick move. And that's, you know, those kind of characteristics of this circuit. It does kind of highlight now a bit of lack of character sometimes with some of the newer circuits we have. A lack of kind of corners like that, where there is some interesting elevation, different cambers on certain corners, where, you know, it makes what looks like a slow, boring corner on a map from top down quite interesting on the circuit level because of that elevation change or just the angle of attack, etc. As we now try and go round the outside of Ocon, get to the inside, always locking up on that left front because you're rolling the car at such speed, but you're also trying to rotate it left, so the left front just always locks up around there. And then we're going to try and go for a very audacious kamikaze dive, little bit of argy-bargy in there, I'm not going to lie, to get up into P9, but this Ferrari just doesn't really have this straight line speed to fully make a pass like that on the inside, so I had to get a little bit dicey and over-aggressive to try and make these passes and get into the points, and now we try and move it on our teammate. This time, don't go for the outside one, instead, round the outside, and this time, the outside move actually worked there, because Leclerc kept way too tight to the curb, so, you know, again, different ways to approach a lot of these different corners. In terms of moves, you know, inside, outside, or just staying behind to set up a move on the next corner. And then obviously, actually, something I'm forgetting about is when the Malaysian Grand Prix was on the F1 calendar and was in the F1 game, tyre wear was also a massive factor around this circuit. It'd be quite interesting to see how the different tyre components now, how that would play out around Malaysia, because it is a hot climate, and we always used to bring the hardest compounds to this circuit, and you know, trying to protect them was always something that was quite ideal to try and do. Obviously, one less stop. It is quite a long pit lane, because the pit lane entry is actually here on the right hand side as we dive down the inside of Stroll, but it goes quite far off on the right and then cuts in to actually join this pit lane on the right hand side over the other side of the fence. So it meant that, you know, doing extra stops wasn't always ideal around Sepang, so you always had to try and play the long game with tyre saving. So with, you know, this crop of tyres, probably, you know, ironically might just end up being a one stop, to be fair, because unfortunately that's the way F1 has gone with that. I do miss the 2 to 3 stops at places like this, but even now, Pirelli, the way they make the tyres, probably would be a one stop actually with the modern crop of tyres and cars. But it would be interesting for sure. And also, you know, obviously when the F1 game did have this circuit, like actually officially, it was a very different game. F1 2017, you know, handling massively different now. And I got to say, even playing this 5-lap race, you know, not even that many laps under my belt, you know, dialing into the circuit, already, it might just be recency bias, but it felt so much more enjoyable to drive now, because F1 2020's handling was really, really solid. The cars felt actually enjoyable to sling around. There was grip at high downforce when you needed it. Even low speed, it was really decent. Just a fun physics model. And with this track, it just elevated it even more to what I remember. Because I actually remember not actually liking Malaysia too much on the F1 game. Always found it so tough against the AI. But this race, you know, minus a few over-aggressive moves down the inside, we've had some fun. And we actually had some decent speed to get up into P6 eventually with Vettel's Ferrari. But from what I've played here, this just convinces me even more. I would love to see circuits like Malaysia back on the actual current F1 games as proper official DLC. Make it happen, Codys. The demand is there, and it would just bring so much other elevation in terms of entertainment on online races, Grand Prix mode, career mode. But alas, we'll have to probably just wait with bated breath until maybe that day comes, if it ever does. But guys, this has been the Malaysian GP back on a modern F1 game. If you have enjoyed it, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. And would you like to see Sepang back on the modern F1 game as proper DLC? Even if it was behind a paywall, would you actually spend money to get Sepang into F1 2023, for example? Let me know in the comments below, because quite curious to actually gauge how many would actually, you know, be willing to do that kind of thing, or you'd want it for free DLC, etc. So let me know in the comments below and sound off and have your own little debate. But that's been this one. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.